Well, the very best of Sai Sudharsan powers the defending champions to 214 at halftime in the final of IPL 2023, the highest score in an IPL final. No team has ever chased to score in excess of 200 in the tournament's history in the final. This is all the work to do for MS Dhoni and co. We look back at quite the innings from Sudharsan, an innings of two halves, which we'll discuss with Tom Moody and Sanjay Manjrekar on Visit Saudi presents ESPNcricinfo T20 Timeout. Let's first go to the man who predicted a 200 plus score, 208 and 209, somewhere there, and as always.
You were what, 180?
Why do my predictions count? Your predictions count. So what a fine score that is, and what an innings from Sudharsan.
Yes, and again, Titans show the world or whoever is watching this final that it's not a team that is dependent on Shubman Gill. Gill didn't quite get a big score, but they've got enough ability, talent, youth, in Sai Sudharsan, and that was an interesting innings in itself. But yeah, just man to man and reaching that score with people like David Miller, Vijay Shankar, what they're not used, just shows how strong Titan is as a team.
This is a story, isn't it, Tom? After being retired out in your last game, to play the final, almost find yourself in the same situation. Must be an incredible turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually made the call that at one point when he was 20 off 17 balls, I thought that was the time that he needed to be retired out. Particularly when they've got the resources they had in the dugout. They only had lost the one wicket. Saha was going along well, and it was time to move on to use those resources that can strike at 170 to 200 range. And I was concerned that they were potentially finding themselves in a position where they may have only got 180, which was going to be well short of what they should have got. But we saw the very best of a very exciting young 21-year-old, I should say, in Sai Sudharsan, how he managed to flick a gear that we've never seen before. He's hitting what he hit six sixes and 8 fours, and I think at that point that I made that statement, he then scored the rest of the innings well over 200 strike rate.
So why do you think they didn't enforce the retired out? There must have been a good reason, because this is a team that's tactically very good. Is it about somebody who's already there and the overall score, the run rate is pretty good, and you're sort of expecting these guys in the reserves to come out there and start firing immediately? What could be the reason that they didn't enforce it, and in the end, it actually worked?
Oh, it did work. It worked absolutely
so tell
perfectly.
Us what could be the thinking?
Well, I think there could be a couple of things. One, they obviously know Sai Sudharsan better than what you and I do, and what his capabilities are and how well he has been playing. So they're trusting that. So that's the think tank. Secondly, they may be just a little bit concerned, which is the point that we made pre-show, in the lack of batting that the likes of Miller and Tuati have had. So suddenly if you do throw in David Miller, who is an international finisher and one of a very, very high calibre, and showed last year in the IPL he's far from done in damaging innings in IPL cricket, maybe they're concerned with his form. So they went with the youth and backed him in, and it paid off in spades.
Does this confuse us about the viability of the retired out? I'm sure there'd be enough batters saying, if you give me 47 balls, I have every chance to get 1995. Or is this a dangerous thing that will happen once in a while, like it did with Tewatia and like it's done with Sudharsan? And so the game must still respect the pragmatism that retired out brings.
Huge risk when you're doing it very early. Now, the retired out situation came in when Saha and Sudharsan were batting together. They had just lost the one wicket. And a guy who is in has a certain advantage. We see so often in T20 cricket, two batters set, get out together, and then suddenly the run rate falls off the cliff. So that is that reality to contend with. And then once you retire somebody out, let's take a situation where you retire Sudharsan out. Saha is a guy who's been given a particular role, so he was always going to be putting his wicket at risk, and he would have got out, and he would have had people like David Miller, Vijay Shankar coming in. I don't think this pitch was the kind that we see at Wankhede or Chinnaswamy. And what if there was a collapse. And then you're looking at a retired out being a blunder. And I loved the way Hardik Pandya actually, when he came in, and Sudharsan still wasn't getting to go. He had a lot of dot balls, and he played one dot ball. And Hardik Pandya was sort of telling him, no worries, cool, carry on. I don't know what the logic behind that was, but that has paid off in Sai Sudarshan. What an innings in the end.
Yeah, oh, look, it's one of those things that I think we'll see it more and more with this retired out. But I think what we've seen is the complete flip side to how it can backfire. There's no doubt there is solid ground in making that move, and I think in the previous game when they did retire him out, that was the right move.
Yeah.
But I think today or tonight we've just seen an example of brilliant batsmanship, and I think more importantly recognising that we've now found another Indian young special player. This guy can play, can't he?
Yeah. Also, quick point. Also, obviously the team management, as Tom said, they know Sudarshan better than what we have is a glimpse of a player. They know that he has the big game and it might just come back to support him. There are some batters that don't quite have the power game, and they are having a slow start. And there is no potential for them to convert a slow start into a magnificent innings in the end. Those are the guys that you might want to retire. You play those guys at the top position for a different reason. Maybe that is another call. If somebody has the potential to bring that A game, the big game.
Well, I know that management in Ashish Neer and Vikram Solanki. I was having a conversation with them last season after the match that we played against them, and Vikram was and Ashish were speaking, but particularly Vikram, about Sai Sudarshan and just saying this guy's going to be very special. So they had identified even last year that they thought very highly of this young player. He wasn't getting as many opportunities, but he said, just look out for this guy. This guy's going to be very special. And what we saw tonight was very special.
Yeah. I'm also thinking, what if this was any other game but the final, where the retired out also has an implication on the rest of the batting? They then think they have to go in and start hitting immediately. Jitesh Sharma, when he was brought in as the player after Atharvatade was retired out, got out in 3 balls.
Yeah.
You tend to receive the message differently when a wicket falls organically. When you're retired out, until more batters just get used to it, do you sense this may be a safer option, especially in a big game?
I think in time the retired out will be nearly no different than a bowling change.
That's how players need to start mentally looking at it.
Absolutely. It's just a change of team tactics. Like I'm not going to bowl the spinner again this year. You might want to bowl another over, but my feeling is I need to bring a pace bowler back into it. So to me, it's just a tactical change, nothing different than a bowling change.
Yeah, I just hope that the emotions don't come in the way where you want to be nice and supportive to a batter. It has to be pure cricketing reasons for the retired out, and not, be nice and, it's a little unfair on the young kid. That should never come into the equation.
No, definitely not. And the other thing, statistically, it shouldn't be, in my view, it shouldn't be out. It should be just retired, and it's not in your statistics as dismissed. Dismissal. It should be just, okay, you're retired at 20 and you're not out. So statistically, it shouldn't have any effect.
Might make the job harder for our post-stats teams and statsmen. They'd like to put it in some column. Yeah, but you certainly want them to be unable to bat again, right?
Yeah, no, they can't. They can't come back in again. But just simply, you're just, you've been moved.
It also tends to happen to young, uncapped players more. Until the day comes where perhaps we retire out some of the big boys. Now, Tom Moody talks about accepting retired out as simply a bowling change, as tactics. Let's talk about CSK. Could they have done with a few more bowling changes? Could they have done anything differently to keep the score to something closer to 180, 190? Tom?
Yeah, one thing I noticed was the ball did turn a little bit. There was a little bit of purchase there, and Moeen Ali wasn't used at all, which I was a bit surprised with. Both the 2 spinners only went at economy of 9, so they were the best, bowling return when it comes to economy. So I felt that there was potentially a trick missed there by MS Dhoni with regards to not using it, Moeen Ali, particularly early on when Sai Sudharsan came in. It was definitely an option he could have turned to, and kept Jadeja in particular, a little bit deeper into the innings. And the other thing we mentioned pre-show was Pathirana, the potential of him coming in, maybe just having that impact over. Just throwing him the ball, whether it be immediately after the power play or, right at the back end of the power play, the 5th or the 6th over. Anyway, somewhere between 5 and 8, 1 over from him, particularly the way the game was going, because it's not like wickets were falling. And when you're in the field, that's what you need. You need a trend of wickets falling.
Yeah, just 5 bowlers used. And what Moeen would have done is maybe taken the burden of Mahendra Singh Dhoni with using Tushar Deshpande, who went at 4 overs for 56 runs, and there were signs. Sometimes those figures can be that way. If the last over goes for 24 or 25, then you can't hold the captain responsible. But there was potential of Deshpande not having one of his better nights. So maybe an over from Moeen Ali, a couple of overs, would have meant less of Tushar Deshpande. And these days, 5 bowlers is a very rare thing that happens. And I thought Dhoni didn't quite go outside his, formula that he has with bowling changes. It was exactly like how it was in all the playoff matches. The way Pathirana was brought in the 12th over, 1 over, and then given the last 3 overs. So nothing changed. But today, against a side on a pitch that suits them, with these big players in the side, just came a little short.
Can you perhaps relate to the period of play that may have made Dhoni think that I don't need Moeen anymore? The window was perhaps in that 7 to 11 over phase. And the fact that Sudharsan and Saha went in what we call a critical period, where they went slow, where they went 7th over went for 5, 8th for 5, 9th for 8, 10th for 6. So there are 4 overs there where they've got run a ball. And now he suddenly thinks these two are not as much of a threat, so now I don't need Moeen. I'll keep my big bowlers for when Hardik comes in, Miller comes in later. Do you sense the window was taken away because he too did not perceive this partnership as a threat early?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, that's in his defence. That's a very valid way to look at it. But I always feel that if you're not taking wickets, you're always at threat at the back end. Going for plenty. Every team ideally wants to have batters in and batters in hand in those last 6 to 8 overs, and if you can have them in hand on a good surface on a ground that has boasted many boundaries and sixes over a season, that can backfire. But there is definitely a defence to him.
And when you talk about big boys, you're talking about Tushar Deshpande and Pathirana. They're not yet really the big boys like a Bravo was.
But I guess, Sanjay, my point is that you would have decided the last 6, 7 overs, these guys have to bowl. I can't get Moeen then. So the window of using Moeen is gone.
Tushar Deshpande could have been,
vulnerable.
A gamble. Pathirana he had to rely on. But this is a captain who has got the most out of these guys. But tonight, is Sudharsan batting that fashion. And actually, Sudharsan in a funny way, had he got out early, they would have had a bigger threat from all these people coming back in. So
what we've seen today is extremely rare, hasn't it? Because this is the kind of thing even MS perhaps didn't see coming.
Yes.
This kind of turnaround without the use of Miller or Tewatia or Vijay Shankar in the form he's been. So, all right, quite something. Now, do you know what happens in 0.1 of a second? That's it. That's all it took. Have you ever seen anything like that? The stumping of Shubman Gill.
Has the quickest hands, like in the Wild West, what the quickest, what did they call it? Is the quickest when they take
gunslinger.
Yeah, but there's a word, he's the quickest.
The gunslinger.
Yeah, so quickest draws his gun quickly, but anyway.
It's a gunslinger.
No, but
you wouldn't stand a chance
there
in
is a term. He is the quickest in the in the Wild West. But anyway.
You'd be shot before you completed that line. If, that point.
Didn't try the game.
But on a serious note, that was something unique.
And he's always been the guy who showed, he's actually the guy who showed the sport that this is a way to actually pull off a stumping. It's much quicker, because the traditional way that was taught to us was, receive the ball and, soft hands and all that. And we see Saha employ that, and we see how much of a difference that makes in a technology-driven sport now. Today what we saw were the quickest of Dhoni stumpings. He is the quickest in the world by far with stumping, but that was his quickest,
That's
which
his
was
personal best.
unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable.
Tom.
Yeah, no, he's just gone past Hussein Bolt with the the speed of that. No, that was one of the better stumpings you'd ever want to see, purely down to speed of it. It's not the best stumping I've ever seen, but it's the quickest stumping I've ever seen.
Sure.
Particularly when you see it side on, it's worth seeing, on a loop, because it was just incredible to think that someone could gather the ball and instinctively take the bails off in that split second.
We talk about how these sort of players inspire generations to almost mimic them, ape them. Will we see more keepers trying to do that now?
So the problem with Dhoni's got a unique technique. Even if you recall that the other catch he took off the high ball from Saha, he doesn't. His technique of catching, he doesn't give with the ball, and he's always been like that. Now that is not something you would coach. That is natural for MS Dhoni. He's been brought up with that, and it's instinctive for him. But that is considered as having hard hands. So if you're catching, whether you're in the slips or you're catching behind the stumps as a gloveman, you always will give with the ball because you've got more chance of it gathering and you cradling the momentum of the ball. MS Dhoni is in a different league, not only with his keeping, with his batting. He's got his own uniqueness.
And
so I think that just needs to be embraced for what it is. I don't think he's going to rewrite the way keeping should be done, but certainly a lot of keepers, you can guarantee, saw that tonight in world cricket and thought, oh my God, I wish I could whip them off as quickly as that. That was incredible speed.
And it's catching on. If you see Klaasen, this IPL, there was one stumping. It was very quick. It was a bit like Dhoni. Nobody now goes like Ridhiman Saha goes and comes back. Deep Das Gupta told me as to why he's able to still have a soft landing of the ball in his gloves is that he just, with his wrist, there's a little bit of a give instead of with the arms. So the ball comes in and he just gives it with the wrist where the hands stay close to the stump.
That ensures a clean connection.
It's cushioned. But today I don't think there was a give as well. It was like...
No, there's no time for give at that speed.
Incredible. He has his own unique way. I know he
That's
once...
how he learned his cricket.
Yeah, I know he once spoke about why he catches it like that. He says, well, because I give the ball more of a basket to land. So it's his own way. It's not supposed to be like that, but he says if I do that, there's more space for the ball to come in.
But isn't that the beauty of the game when we see things like Dhoni and Malinga and Patharana, Matai Muralidhara, and that sort of real uniqueness that individuals bring to the game, and I think that's the beauty of the game, because I think in a lot of parts of the world that can be coached out of players at a young age, that you can't catch like that. If an MS Dhoni suddenly turned up to an Australian academy, for instance, at the age of 17, keeping like that, you can you just about guarantee, the keeping coaches would say, no, you need to cradle the ball, give with the ball, and suddenly you will never see a stumping like that.
Right, fascinating. Saw something unique. Saw a lot of things unique. But just if we could, we all got when we fell in love with the way Gujarat Titans finished. But let's just go to the start, because you sensed, Tom, at the start of a final that they got the highest power play score, I think, in an IPL final, 60 odd without loss. Deepak Chahar putting a couple down. You almost sense that CSK were nervous, so CSK they missed drawing first blood in this game.
Yeah, I thought they were sloppy. That they looked, whether it was nerves or whether it was just that they were, just having an off day on the field. They obviously missed that chance. Chahar missed that chance off Gill. Conway missed one in the covers that he would normally, 19 times out of 20 would collect and it would be no run. We saw a number of fielding opportunities on display. To me, they were not themselves. And even the way they bowled, it was nearly like they were surprised that Gujarat went hard at them. With their body language, the way they responded to it. It wasn't like, right, okay, I'm in this contest. I'm back at you. It was a case of, oh, wow. You've just, smacked that through the covers on the rise, or you've hit me over the top. It was nearly like that whole, they were a bit stunned by it all.
The dropped catch, I thought, was a moment which got Deepak Chahar a bit deflated, because the over that he bowled after that wasn't quite the Deepak Chahar over. There was a bit of a zing in the first couple of overs. And he's somebody who was pretty cool on the field, just that he went on his knees to take that catch. And there were a couple of, I think it was Tikshanu diving over the ball, which could have been, 1 run instead of 4. So all those things came into play. But yeah, one of those lackluster days for CSK, with the ball and in the field as well.
Yeah, poor Tushar Deshpande. Imagine a wicket of Gill early on might have been a different day for him.
Yeah.
As it turns out, none for 56 for 4 is what the scorecard will read. Yep. Right, 214, and while there was all sorts of entertainment for the crowd at the Narendra Modi Stadium at half-time, a light show performance as well by entertainers and superstars, it seems like we now have a bit of a delay as the covers are back on. Right? Let's hope it's only a small delay, and we still have plenty of time before we start cutting over, so we're not getting into that territory just yet. But let's look ahead to the chase, shall we? 214 has never been chased in an IPL final. This is the season, though, Tom, of more 200 plus scores than any other. What are CSK's chances right now?
It's about 70-30 against. I think that's just it's a very, very good score in a final. And I think there's enough on offer with the slower bowlers, and Rashid Khan and Noor Ahmed are going to be a handful in those middle overs, particularly when you've got to navigate Mohammad Shami up front.
Sanjay?
Doesn't look likely that CSK will get there. They depend so much on Conway and Ruturaj Gaikwad, and after that they could lose their way a little bit. Plus the quality of bowling that they have. Just imagine they've got a bowler for everything.
Yep.
Hardik Pandya will bowl with the new ball. There's a Shami, quality to begin with. Mohit Sharma later.
Yeah, Josh Little will come on.
Yeah, Josh Little and Noor Ahmed. So too much of good bowling to get those runs. So if they get it, I'll be surprised. But wow, what a great win it will be.
Well, let's assume, for the sake of our entertainment and for a close game, for a neutral point of view, that CSK are in this. Is this a way you could just, can they follow the Gujarat template and just say, you guys bat normally, or do they need to perhaps stay ahead of the game in order to ensure that Rashid Khan can be seen out or played differently? Do you see, how do you sort of plan for a chase like this, or do CSK plan at all?
Well, I think that they'd love to have the same power play. If they can match the power play and get 60, then that'll give the whole, without losing a wicket, that'll give the whole middle order confidence and hope that, right, okay, we've really set a platform now. And there's no guarantee that Rashid Khan's going to bowl, his best spell of the season either. You can't make that assumption. He is a threat. Yes, you need to respect that threat, but you also need to be proactive against him and make sure that he's under pressure to bowl his best 24 balls. And it's the same with Noor Ahmed. You can't just not attack them because you do consider him as a threat. You
rightly point out yesterday when you were doing the Q&A with our viewers that Ambati Rayudu in his last innings, one of the few batters to take down Rashid Khan. Shivam Dubey's hit.
Yeah, Ruturaj Gaikwad was good against Rashid Khan the last time they played. So I would like to believe that they'll be left to do that thing. Ruturaj Gaikwad will score quicker than Devon Conway. The problem for them, if they set a target in the first 6 overs, these are two of their most precious batters. They can't be losing them early. So that too is a case. And batting second has its advantages. So maybe trust in the natural conditions that things might get a little easy. There could be anxiety towards the end. So take the game deep rather than trying to, fix it in the first 10 overs.
All right. Well, if you have to chase 215 or get anywhere near, you think you need all your batting resources, in which case the stage is set for MS Dhoni to bat one more time in the IPL. Let's see if the stars align for CSK. Let's just bring in a point on the weather in case we have a longer and stronger delay. Already made the point that we could go on for a long time before we start cutting overs. But if we do lose overs, Tom, and we know that we won't lose any just yet, we've completed a full 20 overs in the stipulated time, and we had, as you could see there, at least 2 hours and 5 minutes before we start cutting overs. So you could do the math in that sense. We have 20 more overs to play. But if this game is reduced, does that in any way affect how CSK would think, that they can't possibly be, build a platform? They need to almost go hard, and then what if the weather comes in? You could still be in the game if you need to come back and chase 30-40 or 40-50 in 3 or 4 overs.
I think it does affect CSK's mindset on being very conscious of what Duckworth Lewis' score is as they're tracking down this total to win the match. So they need to assume that the 20 overs is going to be played, but they also need to make sure they're within distance of Duckworth Lewis always, because you just never know when that rain's going to be. And you don't want to drift too far away from that number, that magical number. And funnily enough, when you have that sort of guide, and we're all at half-time, the third or fourth umpire hands out to the coaches or the support staff what the printout is of what you need per over. It's interesting when you actually see you follow it closely. It's pretty close to the template you need anyway.
Yeah.
So you just need to be mindful of that, and every player's mindful of it. You can see it on the scoreboard as well. So if you drift too far from that, 20 runs behind it, it's very hard to catch up, because in trying to catch up, you put at risk taking wickets, which even sets you further back.
All right. Well, looks like there's some good news from Ahmedabad. The covers are slowly but surely coming off. Don't see any real umbrellas or anything like that. Gujarat's fielders are out on the field too. So let's expect to start soon. And let's get a prediction now. Sanjay Manjrekar has been spot on in the playoffs.
He's on fire, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you just tell us?
Really?
That's generally the case.
Really, I think you just hit a bit of a purple patch.
No, I wish you guys didn't bring that up constantly. It just embarrasses me.
Okay. You are the purple cap holder in this room at the moment.
Yes.
Okay. Who wins, right?
Yes. You know how it's played by now, don't you? Yeah.
Titans.
Titans easy or close game? Titans easy?
I don't know. Close or tight.
We put too much pressure on
Doesn't matter in a final
I mean, why
as long
should
as
there
you
be
win.
an added layer? Why should there be difficulty
He wants you to
going up?
he wants you to be wrong somewhere.
Yeah. So I'm not giving you that. I'm saying Titans favourites to win.
Yeah, Titans for me.
All right, easy. 74 games and we haven't had a super over.
Oh God, every bit
Lux
like
is
Dhoni.
rather-
In fact, we can throw in last season, because I don't think we had a super over all of last year's IPL. So that's now 148 games without a super over. Surely at some point.
Very nerdy observation.
Thank you. My kind do that. Thank you, Sanjay. Tom.
Thank you.
The Titans have one hand on the IPL final trophy, you'd think. They are one step closer from becoming only the third team to win back-to-back IPL titles. Let's see if they get there. Beg your pardon, the fourth team to win back-to-back IPL titles. So let's see if they get there, and join us for our final show of this year on Visit Saudi presents ESPNcricinfo T20 Time. So look forward to your company then.